opinion on what tax policy ought to look like? I mean, there's this battle going on right now, for example, over the potential of a border adjustment tax. What's your thought on that?
Well, I'm going to be careful here. We do value our independence of the Federal Reserve. I don't get into politics, and I don't try to tell elected officials what they should do. I do think I do think personally that our corporate tax system is well out of date, and reform. There are a lot of reform ideas out there that do make sense, but it's really up to Congress and the administration to decide how to best do that. One of the things that I think about a lot is, what's it going to do to the economy, and what does it mean for the appropriate stance in monetary policy.
But would tax reform move the needle on economic growth in your view?
Well, this is, in the short run, it could be a boost to growth. I think that most research would indicate that corporate tax reform would have a pretty modest effect in terms of the supply side of the economy. I think it works in the right direction, and I think it would solve some of these issues we have with the repatriation, a lot of the profits in the U.S. companies moving abroad. So there's problems it would fix, I think, make our economy work better. I'm not sure it'd be a total game changer in terms of potential growth, but it would be probably modestly in the right direction.
Yeah, I think you make a good point about the corporate tax rate, because there's a lot of corporations out there who have not paid the 35% that we're talking about. Let me ask you about your district and what you're seeing in San Francisco. We've been watching the stock market, obviously, and the technology names like the so-called FANG, which would be Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, are up big yesterday, hitting all-time highs. Does that jive with what you're seeing on the ground in terms of the activity in San Francisco and throughout California? What are you seeing in terms of that part of the country?
Well, I mean, the tech economy is booming beyond belief.
Still.
Oh yeah, and you see it when you try to drive across the Bay Bridge or take a train or a bus. But it's a very positive sign. I think there's a lot of really amazing new innovations and technologies being developed in Silicon Valley, and quite honestly throughout the West Coast of the United States. And I think a lot of this is proving to be very valuable and successful. A lot of startups, a lot of entrepreneurs out there developing new things, and we're seeing more interest in IPOs again, and I think that's also a positive for this sector. So I've seen a lot of excitement and definitely a lot of employment going on in my region around that.
Where are the weak spots right now, would you say, in the economy?
Well, I think a couple of things. One was the housing. I think I mentioned very briefly is that even though house prices have come roaring back in many places, housing construction is still quite muted. We have the whole issue of the millennials still staying home or not, going out to buy houses, and other factors that seem to holding back the housing market. I would also say that it's important to remember that even though I'll talk about 4.7% unemployment rate in the economy doing well, there are a lot of areas of our economy that aren't doing as well. And in my district, I see this in the Central Valley of California or Eastern Oregon and Washington, parts of Alaska, where, the tech boom and a lot of the things that we're talking about, they really haven't helped those areas as much. And I think we need to see more investment, more economic development in those areas of the country.
How does the environment change, in your view? What's the most important takeaway when we go from an environment where we've got rock-bottom interest rates to an environment where we are seeing a gradual pickup in interest rates led by the Federal Reserve moves?
Well, I think one of the things that people should be aware of is interest rates aren't going to stay, near zero, really low forever. I think some of the boom in the stock market and housing market is because of low interest rates, and so I wouldn't be surprised if the market, doesn't continue to boom as much, because as interest rates move up, that typically brings some asset prices down. I think also, and just from a planning point of view, as we move back to more normal interest rates, the idea that you get a return on your savings and you think about lifetime savings, I think becomes more relevant. I'll tell you, with my kids, I tell them, I have kids in 19 and 22, and telling them to save money because the compounding of interest for their future, yeah, that doesn't work with interest rates at zero.
not with the zero interest rates. It's been great having you, Mr. President. Thank you so much.
Great to be here.
The San Francisco President of the Federal Reserve, John Williams, is with us this morning. Thank you so much, John.